Ever get that feeling where just a tiny detail, maybe something you see in a video or hear in a song, it just hits something way deeper inside you?
Absolutely, like a little key unlocking a big door you didn't even know was there.
Exactly. We all have those moments, those little hints of something more. But what is that feeling, that sense of depth in ourselves and others?
And how do we even talk about it? Especially today, when everything moves so fast and feels kind of surface level sometimes, sharing deep interests can be, well, tricky.
That's precisely what we're digging into today. We've been looking at these materials you sent over, really exploring this whole idea of depth.
Right. How we perceive it, how we find it in our passions, and yeah, the challenges of connecting with others about that stuff.
We've got three main sources. There's depth1.pdf. It uses this really interesting fandom metaphor to map out levels of depth.
Which is surprisingly helpful, actually.
Yeah. Then depth2.pdf looks more at the personal side, like the frustrations of trying to share something you love deeply.
That feeling of maybe talking into the void sometimes.
Totally. And depth3.pdf zooms out a bit, looking at how our whole digital culture, the endless scrolling, maybe affects our ability to even engage with depth.
So the mission today is basically to pull out the core insights from these, right?
Mhm.
Try to understand depth, connection, and why it all matters.
Let's jump in with that fandom metaphor from Depth 1. It's such a neat way to think about it. It starts with the hook, level 1.
Right? The hook. That's the catchy part, the thing that's easy to grasp, like a great movie trailer or the chorus of a song.
Or in everyday life, maybe just small talk, that initial easy connection.
Exactly. It appeals to what we already kind of know, our existing mental shortcuts. It feels familiar, comfortable.
But that's just the doorway, isn't it? The source calls the rest the iceberg. Most of it is hidden.
Yeah, all the complex stuff underneath. In a fandom, that's the lore, the deep history, the fan theories, all that.
And for a person, it's our core beliefs, our history, the things that make us tick but aren't immediately obvious.
And the interesting point is the real strength of that initial hook often depends on how solid that iceberg underneath is. Does it hold up when you look closer?
That makes sense. Then there's the bridge communication, how we actually share that depth.
Which the source says is slow work, building understanding piece by piece, using shared symbols, shared language.
But there's a risk too, right? If people's basic frameworks, their icebergs are just too different.
Yeah, the bridge might not connect properly, the meaning gets distorted, even if both sides have a lot of depth individually, miscommunication happens.
Okay, so let's tackle some of the big questions Depth 1 raises. First one, how deep is the average person, really?
Well, the source suggests most people have deep thoughts, rich inner lives. It's just they don't always get expressed.
Why not? Social norms. Lack of chance.
Could be lots of reasons. But the key idea seems to be that true depth isn't just having deep thoughts in isolation. It's about integration, how those thoughts connect over time, shape who you are.
Integration over time, I like that. It's the pattern, not just the points.
Exactly. Which leads to the next question. Are we maybe blind to deeper truths?
Ooh, provocative. What does the source say?
Pretty much, yeah. Our biases, our emotional wounds, even just our comfort zones, they create this kind of mental fog.
So we might think we're seeing clearly, but we're missing a lot.
And we probably overestimate our own depth because of it.
Yeah.
We don't know what we don't know. It's humbling.
Definitely. Okay, here's a fascinating one. What does real depth look like to someone who just can't grasp it?
It might look like nothing special, or even kind of boring, irrelevant, maybe even threatening to their view of the world.
Threatening, wow.
Yeah, because it challenges their reality.
Yeah.
The source uses that flatlander and the sphere analogy. All the flatlander sees is a changing circle. They can't perceive the whole sphere.
Right, our own dimension limits what we can even imagine. That makes sense.
And linked to that is skepticism. Is it protecting us or holding us back?
Good question. What's the take?
It draws a line between healthy skepticism, setting good boundaries, questioning things constructively, and paranoid skepticism, which just builds walls.
So it depends on your foundation.
Kind of. If your base understanding is shaky, maybe skepticism just protection. But if you have a solid grounding, it becomes a tool like a compass for exploring, not a locked gate.
Okay, let's talk about those fandom levels of depth again. We mentioned level 0, no interest, and level 1, the hook. What about the really deep end? Level 7, transcendence.
Level 7. That's where it gets really interesting. It's described as this place where you You integrate everything so deeply that you kind of let go of the need to own it or defend it.
Let go of the ego around it.
Exactly. You see the connections, the bigger picture, your place in it, rather than just trying to analyze it from the outside.
But there's a paradox there, isn't there?
A few, actually. First, there's this deep sense of peace, like a stillness that comes from surrender, from seeing the interconnectedness.
Sounds...
It is, but it can look like detachment or apathy to others. Like you don't care anymore, when really you just see it differently.
Okay, I see. And that leads to the loneliness aspect.
Right, the paradox of transcendence. That peace can feel isolating because, frankly, not many people operate at that fully integrated level.
Yeah.
Conversations can feel shallow.
You feel misunderstood, maybe?
Or like you can't quite bridge the gap. It makes you think about, mystics or deep thinkers throughout history, often isolated or seen as odd.
Which brings us to the madness question, that blurry line.
Yeah, between profound insight and just losing it.
Mm.
Both can involve seeing patterns others don't, messing with time perception, ego dissolving a bit.
So how do you tell the difference? How do you know if you're finding insight or just getting lost?
The source points to groundedness. Can you come back? Can you communicate what you found, even in simple terms? Can you build bridges?
So it's about connection back to the shared world.
Exactly. Versus rejecting questions, feeling uniquely special, being absolutely certain you're right, isolating yourself. Humility versus certainty. Curiosity versus dogma.
Building tools for others versus just staying in your own world. Got it.
And that leads to the final paradox.
And
The deeper you go into complexity,
the more you need simplicity.
bingo, simple anchors. Daily rituals, relationships, basic truths. Transcendence isn't about leaving the world behind. It's about being in it and beyond it simultaneously. A tricky balance.
Okay, but pushing into these ideas might raise some flags for people. Depth 1 anticipates some pushback, right? Like, isn't this just intellectual snobbery?
Yeah, it addresses that. The counter is that true depth, that integrated kind, usually comes with humility, not superiority. If someone's genuinely explored deep, they often don't feel the need to brag.
Makes sense. What about why bother going deep if the surface is fun enough?
It acknowledges that surface enjoyment is totally valid, but suggests depth can, add richness, even if it takes more effort. It respects different choices.
And the classic, you're just reading too much into it.
The answer there is nuanced. It suggests depth often happens in the dialogue between the thing and the person engaging with it. Projection is part of making meaning. It's not purely objective.
So it's co-created, in a way.
Kind of. And finally, you think too much. The reply is that reflection isn't just complication. It can be liberation, finding clarity, feeling authentic. That's the goal.
Can you go too deep, though? The tyranny of depth?
Apparently, yes. Obsession, alienation. But the idea is that true mastery circles back. Level 7 isn't stuck in complexity. You can return to simplicity, maybe guide others. It's cyclical.
And our own minds can get in the way, right? Biases.
Oh, definitely. Confirmation bias, only seeing what fits our beliefs. Narrative fallacy, making neat stories out of messy reality. Sunk cost, sticking with something just because we already invested time. All barriers.
Language is another hurdle, isn't it?
Huge one. Different levels of understanding can feel like different dialects. Misunderstandings are almost inevitable unless someone can translate effectively.
And the danger of getting stuck on the symbols, like worshiping the fandom itself instead of the meaning it points to.
Yeah, mistaking the map for the territory. The symbol is a pointer, not the destination. Getting attached stops the journey.
Okay, let's pivot to depth2.pdf. This one feels really practical, dealing with the nitty-gritty of trying to share these deep interests.
Right. It starts with that core tension. You want to share this thing you love, this thing you've put time into.
But the other person just isn't as invested. That asymmetry, feeling like you always have to be the one to bridge the gap, to simplify, to translate.
Exactly. Balancing access and depth. How do you make something complex and meaningful to you visible, let alone engaging, to an outsider without losing its essence? It takes effort. Emotional labor sometimes.
And that can lead to some tough feelings, right, under the surface.
Oh, yeah. Loneliness, feeling unseen in your passion. Frustration when attempts to share just fall flat.
Maybe even silencing yourself, deciding it's just easier not to talk about it.
Definitely. Or doing that performative engagement thing, sharing just the easy surface bits you think people will accept. And maybe even resentment builds up quietly.
That feeling of always meeting others where they are, but not feeling met in return. That emotional imbalance.
Yeah, that's a core theme. So Depth 2 offers strategies. Practical stuff.
Like what?
Start with the why, not the what. Share the feeling, the impact it has on you before diving into the details.
Makes sense. Lower the barrier to entry.
Right. Create low-commitment on-ramps, like share a trailer, not the whole series, a short clip, not the deep analysis video.
And be honest about the difference in engagement.
Gently. Yeah. Name the gap without judgment. Like, hey, I know this is super niche, but this part really struck me. Respect their autonomy.
Crucially, protect your own passion too, right? Don't let the lack of shared interests kill your own joy.
Absolutely. Seek intersections, common ground, but don't feel you have to replace your deep interests with shallow ones just to connect.
And maybe accept that some interests are just niche. Find your specific audience.
Exactly. You might be a niche character aiming for targeted resonance, not mass appeal. Build little rituals around it if you can. Shared watch nights, inside jokes.
And resist that urge to be the savior, the one who makes everyone else see the light.
Oh, big time. Respect their path. Invite, don't pull.
I like the reframe it offers. Think like a lore keeper.
Yeah, tend the fire. Keep it burning for yourself and make it welcoming for anyone curious enough to step closer. Don't chase them down with it.
And in the digital age, this means being ethical about how you share. Right. Using
Right.
social media as a bridge, not bait.
Totally. Think like a guide, holding the door open. Let curiosity lead. Respect autonomy. Be honest. Have empathy.
The micro examples were great, sharing complex ideas through like a comic strip or a playlist.
Yeah, simplifying the invitation, not necessarily the core idea itself, making it easy to take a first step.
And it pushes for self-reflection. Why am I sharing this? Am I inviting or cornering? Would I still love this if no one cared?
Those are tough but important questions, which leads to, what if you do share? Genuinely, carefully, and still, nobody really bites.
That feeling.
It acknowledges that shared ache of feeling unseen. It says, okay, first, it's probably not your fault in terms of your worth, but manage expectations. You can't pin your self-worth on how others receive your passion.
Is it their fault?
Not directly, maybe, but their silence or lack of curiosity can hurt. Love and curiosity aren't the same thing.
And society plays a role too, rewarding breadth over depth, speed over substance.
Yeah, the source definitely points to that broader context. So what do you do then?
Let yourself feel the grief or disappointment, maybe.
Yes, honor that. Separate your worth from the reception. Seek resonance elsewhere. Find your people, even if it's a small group online or off. And protect your joy.
Protect your joy. I like that. Don't let the lack of external validation poison the internal reward.
Exactly. And it's blunt. There's no solution if what you want is control. You can't make people care or resonate.
But there are shifts if you want peace, connection, integrity.
Yes. Redefine the win. Maybe just having one good conversation. Find micro-resonance. Turn inward. Focus on why you love it. Seek out those resonant circles. Step back from trying so hard without guilt. And stay open to surprise connections.
Okay, shifting gears again to depth3.pdf. This one really tackles the big picture, our culture's relationship with depth itself.
Yeah, it talks about this fracturing of fandom, not in the sense of arguments, but how we engage, moving from diving deep into one thing to skimming across many things.
From exploring lore to just endlessly scrolling.
Exactly. Speed over substance, breadth over depth, maybe more individual autonomy, but less shared community experience. Algorithms feeding us our own unique reality.
It feels like we've lost something there. Those shared media moments, the anticipation, the collective discussion afterwards. That slowness.
Depth3 argues that consumerism and economics play a role. Deep, slow engagement is inconvenient for a system built on constant novelty and quick clicks, virality over substance.
Which leads to this fragmented reality, everyone in their own feed, their own bubble, less shared cultural ground.
That's the concern. Dissolving the shared canon, maybe, making it harder to connect across different experiences.
And the big question, is this healthy? All this skimming.
The source suggests maybe not. It could lead to more isolation, shorter attention spans, weaker memory, maybe even a flatter sense of identity if we only engage superficially, losing intimacy with ideas.
So how do we push back? How do we navigate this landscape?
Some practical tips again. Consciously slow down consumption. Reclaim rituals like decide to watch a whole movie without checking your phone. Really invest deeply in one thing for a while.
And when you share that one thing, do it gently. Invite, don't preach.
Exactly. And it circles back to that feeling. What happens when you do obsess over one thing and nobody else gets it?
That isolation again, emotional, maybe even existential.
Right. And society can sometimes view that deep focus as weird, right? Unrelatable, unhealthy, unbalanced. Socially awkward, maybe.
But there's a difference between deep focus being a strength leading to mastery, meaning and it being a trap leading to withdrawal, rigidity.
Definitely. It's about integration again. Does it enrich your life overall? Does it connect you to something, even if not everyone?
It lays out pros and cons of deep focus versus diversified interest, right? Mastery versus flexibility, isolation versus connection.
Yeah, highlights the trade-offs. Neither is inherently superior, but they have different outcomes. Deep focus can bring stability, purpose, control, act as an emotional container.
So if you are that deep focus person, what do you do?
Name the loneliness. Build translators, find ways to share the essence simply. Maybe consciously diversify a bit, find other things to nourish you. Seek out those resonant circles, your fellow obsessives. And let the obsession evolve. Don't cling to it rigidly.
There's a strong critique here of the attention economy.
Oh yeah, calling it a colonizer of curiosity. Shifting us from genuine inward exploration to chasing outward clicks and validation.
Losing that sense of craftsmanship, devotion, maybe even sacredness around learning or creating something deeply.
Precisely. It contrasts Tolkien's world building with fleeting TikTok trends. Skyrim's immersive depth with Fortnite's constant churn. Albums versus playlists.
And the danger of everyone having such a hyper-individualized experience.
Makes it harder to find common ground, harder to bridge differences. Fragmented culture, fragmented identity.
Because that shared culture needs time to brew, right? The inside jokes, the theories, the shared language that comes from slow collective engagement.
Right. Depth 3 calls it the architecture of belonging versus the architecture of consumption. Building a home versus renting a room in someone else's feed.
There's even a neuropsychology bit, flow states versus dissonance.
Yeah, the joy of flow when you're deep in it, but the jarring feeling when you look up and no one else shares your map, understands your coordinates.
It brings back that archetype of the lore keeper or oracle.
The guardian of depth, speaking to those willing to listen, tending the flame. It extends the metaphor. Depth as a mirror reflecting you, obsession as a map you navigate. But you still need a tether to the shared world.
So, is there hope in this fragmented, fast-paced world?
The source says yes. But maybe it's found in smaller moments.
Wow.
Slow connections, individual sparks of understanding, not necessarily a mass return to depth, but pockets of it.
It's not necessarily depth versus breadth either, is it? Specialist versus generalist.
Right. Both paths have value, benefits, risks. Breadth can actually help empathy, understanding why someone is passionate about something different, even if you don't share the passion.
Does focusing on too many things dilute your identity, though?
Only if it's all surface level and disconnected, maybe. If you can find underlying themes that connect your interests, then maybe not. It's about integration again.
So it comes down to finding your own rhythm.
Yeah. What's your rhythm of attention? Maybe some anchor obsessions, some rotational interests you dip into. What works for you?
Wow. Okay, that's a lot to chew on from these sources. We've gone from fandom metaphors to the paradoxes of transcendence, the struggles of sharing, and the impact of modern culture.
It really shows how multifaceted this idea of depth is, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's personal, it's relational, it's cultural. And communicating it, well, that's clearly a challenge.
But it feels like the journey into depth, even with its challenges, is valuable in itself. It's not about getting to some final, deepest point.
Exactly. Maybe it's more about building those bridges, however small. Fostering understanding, nurturing curiosity in ourselves, and maybe sparking it in others.
So a final thought for everyone listening, maybe something to reflect on.
What is your rhythm of attention? How do you personally navigate that balance between going deep into the things that fascinate you and staying connected to the world, to the people in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. And maybe a little encouragement for the bridge builders out there, those folks trying to share their deep passions with care.
Absolutely. Keep leaving those breadcrumbs. Keep tending that fire. Your willingness to share your unique inner world, gently and authentically, is what makes real connection possible, especially when everything feels so vast and fast.